In the race for the White House, voters head to the polls in 4 states today, with Michigan seen as the top prize. Republicans also vote in Hawaii, Idaho, and Mississippi. Democrats vote only in Michigan and Mississippi. On the Democratic side, the ongoing water crisis in Flint, Michigan has become a major campaign issue. The crisis began when an unelected emergency manager appointed by Michigan's Republican Governor Rick Snyder switched the source of Flint's water to the corrosive Flint River in an apparent bid to save money. The river water corroded the city's pipes and poisoned the water with lead. On Monday, 7 Flint families filed a class-action lawsuit accusing Snyder of gross negligence for allowing Flint's water to be contaminated by lead. In a debate on Sunday in Flint, both Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders called for Snyder's resignation.
I had the opportunity to meet with a number of residents of Flint, had a town meeting in Flint, and I have to tell you, what I heard and what I saw literally shattered me, and it was beyond belief that children in Flint, Michigan, in the United States of America in the year 2016 are being poisoned. I believe the governor of this state should understand that his dereliction of duty was irresponsible. He should resign.
Secretary Clinton.
I'm very grateful that my request that we hold this debate be held here so we can continue to shine a very bright spotlight on what has happened in this city. I agree. The governor should resign or be recalled. I know the state of Michigan has a rainy day fund for emergencies. What is more important than the health and well-being of the people, particularly children? It is raining lead in Flint, and the state is derelict in not coming forward with the money that is required.
Well, today, on the day of the Michigan primary, we bring you a Democracy Now! Exclusive, the broadcast premiere of a new documentary that tells the inside story of how local residents, journalists, and scientists organized to uncover the water contamination crisis that has sparked congressional hearings, the resignations of public officials, and a national debate about the impacts of austerity and infrastructure decline in the United States. The film draws on months of filming by Kate Levy and more than a year of investigative work by Kurt Guyette, who's just been named Michigan Journalist of the Year. It's called Here's to Flint.
We chose to use the Flint River for a short period of time.
Look, Jerry,
it would make sense.
It's working, Jerry. Look at that ball
It would make sense.
Look at that work, Jerry.
Excuse me.
Sir. You're killing us.
Sir, please. I'm not killing anybody.
We had an agenda here.
Under Michigan Public Act 436, a law championed by Governor Rick Snyder, the state can take over financially struggling cities by handing complete authority to an appointed emergency manager. Emergency managers can break collective bargaining agreements, create new ordinances, abolish existing laws, sell off assets, and take away health care benefits from retirees. There's only one thing the law prohibits them from doing.
My name is Claire McClinton. I'm a member of the Flint Democracy Defense League Water Task Force. It's interesting to note in Public Act 436, the emergency manager cannot void a contract with bondholders. That's off limits. Bondholders are sacred. They cannot be touched. People are not sacred.
Nearly every city and school district that has had its democracy suspended under emergency management is a community like Flint, majority African American and saddled with high poverty rates. What these communities also have in common is that severe cuts in state funding have helped push them into financial distress. Emergency managers completely usurp the authority of locally elected officials.
How is this democracy?
Well, as much as we have for now.
My name is Pastor Alfred L. Harris, Sr. of the Saints of God Church in Flint, Michigan.
Basically, the mayor has no power, authority. The city council has no power or authority, who were elected by the people. There's something wrong with that. And all of us need checks and balances because none of us make the best decision all the time.
We knew that this law was undemocratic. We knew it was dictatorial. We knew it was unprecedented. But we never dreamed that we would be faced with not being able to use our municipal water.
While Flint was under state control, the city's long-term water source was switched from Detroit's regional system to the newly created Karagandhi Water Authority. While the pipeline was under construction, the state forced the people of Flint to use the highly corrosive Flint River as the source of their drinking water. It was a cost-cutting move designed to save no more than $5 million.
When we heard it on the news that we might be drinking Flint water, might be going to that, we all thought it was a joke, because everybody knows how gross the Flint River is.
Here's the Flint. Here's the Flint. Here it is.
Average resident won't notice any difference.
But there was a drastic difference. Almost immediately, people began to complain about water that looked bad, smelled bad, and tasted bad.
And it's just been one debacle after another. We've had 3 or 4 boil water advisories.
My name is Melissa Mays. I've had all sorts of things happen with the rashes, the hair loss, the muscle stiffness, the soreness.
For instance, right now, we don't baptize. If we baptize, we have to go outside of the city of Flint.
It's almost like we're living in a nightmare.
While Flint residents were forced to continue to drink the river water, General Motors was allowed to switch back to the Detroit system because the highly corrosive Flint River was causing engine parts to rust. While many of the problems with the river water quickly became apparent to residents, other dangers remained hidden. For 9 months, they were subjected to high levels of TTHMs, a carcinogenic byproduct of chlorine. The state kept that information secret until January 2015. After that information was finally disclosed in a letter to residents, officials met with an angry public in an attempt to assure them that everything was under control.
If there is disruption, the police are prepared to remove the disruption, and then we will go on with the meetings.
This letter spoke about cancer. It spoke about nervous problems and people with weak immune systems. You spoke about that, doctor. And I think people feel that their bodies and their lives and their well-being is being compromised. So please.
So the study of water and disease has been going on since early Egyptian times. We have evidence of studies in the United States since the 1900s.
The TTHMs weren't the only concern. Flint residents were also at the meeting to express outrage over being forced to use water so foul you wouldn't give it to an animal.
I'm a tester. What do? I test water. I do health. Wholesome water is important, and you don't want to drink water that doesn't taste good, that doesn't smell good, and is cloudy. And so I understand that.
One of the people at that meeting was Leanne Walters, a mother of 4. That meeting is where she met Jerry Ambrose, the 4th emergency manager who was appointed by the governor to run Flint.
My first encounter with the emergency manager, he called me a liar and called me stupid. I went up to him with bottles from my tap, and I'm like, well, this is my water. He's like, no, it's not. He's like, I don't believe that's your water.
In late February, after Leanne Walters had demanded that the city test her water, the results showed the water Walters' family was using had lead levels 7 times higher than the federal action level. Walters shared that startling information with the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, which reacted with alarm. In an email to the Michigan Department of Environmental Quality, an EPA official wrote, "Wow, did he find the lead? She has 2 children under the age of 3. Big worries here." Those high levels prompted EPA water expert Miguel Del Toro to ask what kind of corrosion control the city was using. Flint must have optimal corrosion control treatment. Is it phosphates? The MDEQ responded to the EPA by saying it had an optimized corrosion control program in place, but offered no specific details. By March, residents were increasingly calling for a return to the Detroit system. Pastor Alfred Harris helped lead this effort.
Our goal is to return Flint to the purest water source, and that is the Detroit source. In the interim, we want an injunction for that. We're not worried about long range right now. That still has to come to fruition, but immediately we want to go back to Detroit. I haven't talked to anyone in the state, city, anywhere that does not agree that the purest water source for the people of Flint is the Detroit source.
So, in answer to the second question, Detroit water, can we hook up again to the Detroit water? Great question. Everybody's asking, can we hook up? We can if we have a money tree. We don't have a money tree, and you guys would be sorry. So you'd be sorry if we hooked up on that, so that's the answer to that question. Do you live in Flint?
The emergency manager on through to the treasurer's office and on to Lansing, the governor's mansion, have shown a total disregard for the human needs of the people.
As public anger grew, what would become a persistent lie took root. Throughout the crisis, city and state officials repeatedly claimed they were forced to use the Flint River after Detroit canceled a long-term contract. And here's Emergency Manager Ambrose.
It was Detroit that sent us a letter that said, we're canceling your contract. Go find your water someplace else. All right? Now, we looked at that, and we said...
I'm not sure that's true.
Well, we have the Flint River.
What those same officials didn't say was that Detroit had tried to enter into a new agreement. Darnell Early, the city's third emergency manager, flatly rejected this offer in a letter to Detroit just before the switch.
We chose to use the Flint River.
It's working, Jerry. Look at that ball
It would make sense.
Look at that work, Jerry.
Excuse me.
Sir. You're killing us. Sir. Please.
I'm not killing anybody.
Faced with public outrage, the Flint City Council voted to return to the Detroit water system.
Let us go back to Detroit, give the people good quality, clean drinking water until this KWA come.
Emergency Manager Jerry Ambrose overruled that vote. Citizens like Melissa Mays were enraged to see their democratically elected officials silenced and their health sacrificed for a dollar amount.
The city council voted and followed and did what the people asked. The next day, he put out a press release saying this is incomprehensible.
Emergency Manager Ambrose insisted the change back to the Detroit system was unnecessary because Flint's water was perfectly fine. But Claire McClinton saw through this.
The narrative that they're using to get us to sit down and be comfortable with this situation is that the water is safe.
But the water was not safe.
In April, beginning of April, we found out my child had lead poisoning.
Lead is a powerful neurotoxin. Childhood exposure to lead results in IQ loss, behavioral problems, and learning disability, all of which can push young kids into the school-to-prison pipeline. For children and adults alike, lead can cause extensive harm to almost every organ or system in the body, especially the central nervous system. Perhaps most disturbing of all is that the impact of lead exposure can be passed from one generation to the next.
I'm terrified of what, the outcome of this, the aftermath of this could be neurologically for my children.
Remember that claim from the Michigan Department of Environmental Quality that corrosion control was in place? Leanne Walters found out on her own from a water plant employee that, in fact, no corrosion control was being used.
On Detroit water, we were using a corrosive control, phosphate. The city is not using that control. Pipes are eating themselves from the inside out, and everything that's built up into them is now coming through our homes because these things are not in place.
She shared that information with the EPA's Del Toro, who was able to verify it. In an April 2015 email, Del Toro wrote, Pat Cook has confirmed that following the disconnection from Detroit, Flint has not been operating any corrosion control treatment, which is very concerning given the amount of lead service lines in the city. The state had made a catastrophic decision to not treat the corrosive river water with a mandatory corrosion control. People's water was discolored because it was leaching rust from the city's old iron infrastructure. What was not visible were lead particles being leached from lead service lines and lead plumbing.
I've reached out to the health department with no answers, City Hall, Ambrose. I've written to Governor Snyder. I've called his office with no results.
My water is discolored and my lead is at 397. The maximum is 15. People with discolored water are at a greater risk for having lead or copper in your water. Everybody needs to get it tested, but especially anybody with discolored water.
I'm Pastor Harris, Sergeant Pastor for Social Action, pastor of Saints of God Church here in Flint, Michigan. The powers that be may not be listening to us. I believe that if we keep on talking, and if we keep on screaming, and if we keep on shouting, sooner or later something's going to happen.
We need the federal government in here.
In May 2015, Governor Rick Snyder declared Flint's financial emergency to be over. The city's fourth emergency manager vacated his position with one final order. He forbade Flint's elected officials from overturning any previous EM orders, including the switch to the river, for at least 1 year.
And when you get to the point where you feel like it don't matter what I say or do, they're going to do what they want to do anyway, that's a sad day for America.
That was Flint resident Gertrude Marshall. We'll be back in a minute with more of Here's to Flint.